I really think nobody in the history of time, arrogantly speaking, even the great genius of Mozart, have continuously uploaded more than 6,000 improvisations on YouTube. I mean, seriously, we have to explain to the world what the heck is that?
It's just a journal of my inner life.
Okay, then what?
Which happens to be public. so obviously the inner and the outer.
It started on my 3rd year here in 2012. And what sort of drove you to do that? Because it's something so special.
No, it's just liberating.
Liberating. So, did it sort of change you in a way? No.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
How has it?
So, when I compose fast too. I wrote over 300 art songs, and I would write sometimes an art song every 2 days. From A to Z, meaning from sketch to clean copy. What always bothers me in the notation is that it slows me down.
Yeah.
Also,
do you notate very quickly?
Yes, but the problem is that a composition is by essence something you do in episodes of your life. You don't just start composing and isolate yourself from the world. You teach, you go home, you go to the obligations you have to do, so you interrupt. And then you reconnect to it, just like writers when they write a novel. And what happens, I find always very disappointingly, is that the little gate that opened, that I took as an inspiration from which I gather the piece, that somewhere exists in my subconscious, and I just bring it to me.
Right.
And I filter when I think is wrong, but I keep when I think is right. So of course I can do that by erasing. The fact that I go back to it after a day of teaching, for instance, I don't find that door open anymore. I open another door. And then it becomes spliced or edited. But it doesn't have that initial flow, which is what I really enjoy in improvisations. Because by essence, you start, and until you stop, it's a continuous flow. Sometimes in the flow of the thought, you have stop and start, thinking around, staying in place, and then going there. But you let yourself daydream flow, and you follow it. In a way, you don't control, because if you do, then you'll stop. But at the same time, you allow yourself to explore things without to be critical, or it's too banal, I have to do this, no, I should modulate, no, I shouldn't stay in this key, because you always have these options on each moment of the composition. I get to a crossroads, I can go this way, this way, which will leads me to this, this and that. You cannot do that in the improvisation. So what happens at the improvisation's weakness is that it can be messy and repetitive. And the advantage of the composition is that because it's edited, it becomes a streamline of extracting the best of your thoughts. And from time to time, every many thousand improvisations, there's one that comes up exactly as written. And for these rare moments, I'm very thankful. Because then I am reaching this combination of the two, which is the reflection but interrupted, or the flow but unfiltered. And most of it is because even when we live as musicians in daily life, we hear music in our heads. Would it be music we just played because we study it? Or stays in your subconscious, or you hear it like something as happens to me every time I wake up. I wake up and I already hear pieces that start playing in my head, which must have happened just before I wake up. You know, so the first thing I do is I notate down what I just heard in my dream.
It happened to me sometimes. I remember when I was younger, there was suddenly an orchestral fugue happening in my head. And I swear to God, it was not something that I heard before.
So it was something that was filtered through your imagination.
Yes, it was purely my imagination.
And did you notate it?
No, I forgot it.
But could have you notated it?
It would have taken me too much time and I would have forgot it.
And then perhaps you would have reduced it.
That's my shortcoming. Back to it.
But that's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem, of course.
And so perhaps improvisation is liberating because it allows you to express yourself without to explain yourself.
Yeah, recently I've tried to improvise a little bit. And I just don't care about results, I just do.
But you know, I think people often who don't know music confuse song with piece.
Okay.
They always relate to you when you're a musician saying, oh, I love the song you just played. And you tell them, no, it's a piece. In other words, the reason for which this happens, I think, is that most people who are music friends, lovers, but not professionals, assume that music is lyrics. Therefore, music without lyrics doesn't say anything specific, except it vehicles a mood. And so I find that very liberating because I don't have to explain the mood. When I wrote my French art songs, either the piano part is reactive in the mood to the meaning of the words that I capture from the poetry that I'm setting, or then purposely I write something in the music that accompanies these words being sung that provocatively goes against them. But one way or the other, the music is hovering the word. And if you don't have a word in terms of syllables and
Note, pitches, melodies.
no, the verb.
Onto the.
You hear the music for the feelings and not like when you hear a speech for the meaning. If you listen to somebody give a speech in a foreign language you don't speak, since you don't hear the meaning, you only listen to the music of the language, which could be awkward, fun, or even distracting. But what you listen to somebody's speech is to the point of what they are trying to say. And I find that when you play music without lyrics, which is most of the time instrumental, for instance, on the piano, you suggest things without to say them. And I find that very liberating. Because I don't have to be locked by the meaning of the word.
Yeah. You know, speaking of that, unfortunately, I do think one of the biggest problems from parts of the world where music tradition is not as traditional is that, especially in Hong Kong, we need to pin down the exact literal meaning of the art. So, let's say in popular music, the specific meaning of this song, and Chinese words, is very complicated and complex and meaningful.
Well, all words are complicated and meaningful.
That became the essence of our culture and our understanding. That when we listen to a classical piece, let's say the Goldberg variation even, we have to know, oh, what does this piece mean?
But I think it's the same for Europeans.
Is it?
Yeah.
But at least
as I said, if there is no lyrics, they have to...
But at least they sort of culturally accepted that this is already what it is.
No.
What it has been.
No.
I don't know.
Because I think there is always a difference between the music that is knowledgeable and the music that is popular. And so...
original and popular, what do you mean?
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable and popular, what do you mean?
So knowledgeable is a fugue. Popular is a nursery song or a lullaby that the mother sings to the child.
Wow.
So it's
put it that way.
It's a fact that music has to have some kind of function. And when you write music that has no function except the imagination of your brain to put 5 voices together.
And those are the knowledgeable ones.
Well, inevitably, you cannot connect to it unless you're already advanced in your knowledge of music as a listener. But if you hear a lullaby or a funeral song, you understand very well what it is about.
You know, I'm trying very hard. not to want to accept what you just said, because the implication of that is that music is not for everyone.
It is not for everyone.
Okay then.
It is for at the level of the emotion, like in a soundtrack of a film. It is for everybody because it connects to the psyche of humanity, regardless of their culture.
Right, but
And obviously, if you write a soundtrack like I do for the art songs, for the texts, soundtrack to the texts, if you write soundtracks to the film, to the video, if it's a scene that is very tense, you cannot really do this unless you really want to be provocative by some irony. If you do diminished seventh, anybody in the world knows that something is going to happen because it feels psychologically unsettled. So when you reach these kind of levels of signals to the soul of the listener, you don't need to explain. But when you play for them something like the listener to think. And if you play for the listener, they don't, because they immediately feel the dancey part, even if they don't know what it's about. So I think that even in the tradition of Western music, in the European background that goes for at least several centuries, the elite only knew about music in the past. Now the large masses in comparison, because of the transmission of music through recordings, or radio, or whatever means, is more... You still see on their dial of any FM station in the world that you have one classical station at best for 99 that are not. And who listens to the classical stations? Usually people who have the luxury to think, or want to think. Because it's a thought process to listen to classical music. It's not just entertainment, though there is entertainment action in the classical music. I think that popular music is connected to the roots, the folk music, and it's reductive to say that in Asia, Debussy might be close to, let's say, in his whole tone scale, because it's closer to the 5 tones of the pentatonic compared to a tonic dominant tension release of the tonal system from Western Europe. So I find that when my Asian students play Debussy, they connect to it beyond classical music. It must be to do with the fact that the whole tone, the pentatonic, the lack of leading tone, is very appealing to whatever kind of music you might have heard in your childhood.
I disagree with that, but...
You didn't listen to Chinese music when you grew up?
I think simply because of the character of the traits of Debussy music, but it has nothing to do with the
Did you grow
choices.
up listening to Chinese music as a child, before classical?
Absolutely none.
But this because your parents chose not to?
No, most of them no.
So how did you escape?
Escape from what?
Hearing traditional music.
There is none there.
Well, there must be.
There is none. There's none.
When I grew up in
You
Bulgaria,
will go to... You will
any
go,
radio station plays Bulgarian dance.
we hear so much more popular music, which is basically just traditional harmony, much more than the whole tone traditional music.
But I don't talk about popish music. I speak about folk music.
Nobody listens to folk Chinese music in Hong Kong when they grow, okay?
Why not?
No, because nobody does. Nobody does.
I know it's reductive to say that too, because you don't have to. But
it is not that. In fact, it's for the even more elite, perhaps. All right, it just doesn't work. You go to Shanghai 2 weeks later, you will see. Okay.
all I can say is that when I was a child in Bulgaria, My parents wanted, at least my father's musical knowledge,
Connected to Bulgarian roots?
no, wanted me to listen to the classical music. So it was on the LPs at the time. We had only technology, but which was already a lot. Selectively, I had to listen all the time to Mozart and Beethoven and Schumann and Chopin and all that. But that was because my father chose to. But if you open the radio, you listen to traditional Bulgarian
Traditional.
folk music,
Okay.
not pop.
All
Folk.
of them, they'll turn on the radio. It's actually
Pop.
Pop and Americanized pop as well.
Well, in Bulgaria, it was always folk.
Then you're lucky.
And so the reason for which this is a problem sometimes is that some of the composers you play, Bartók, Szymanowski, Tchaikovsky, are more inspired musically
By the roots?
by their musical traditional
Heritage.
roots, that comes the heritage of their folk background,
Yeah.
than composers like Schoenberg, who choose to
Abandon all this all.
construct intellectually musical worlds
Yeah.
that are not related to their
Cultural roots.
especially after World War I, when a lot of the European countries which were under empires became independent, their musical identity became part of their pride. And so you have this Slovak music, the Czech music, the Catalan music, all these things are very important to some of the identity of peoples in Europe countries, but they're not all under the same musical language. Basically, in the 18th century, everybody sounded what we consider today early Viennese school, even if they were not in Vienna. But today, there are either people who inspire themselves by their roots, either people who inspire themselves by their intellectual constructions. So they do write music that is post-dodecaphonic, post-tonal, post-this, microtone, repetitive, anything just that gives them a new alphabet. And then they write their music. So I think that your hearing of music is, in a way, combined with your knowledge of classical music as well as if you've grown up in Europe.
I agree. We have a little diverted a little away from improvisation, but I have one question. Shall I assume that you will improvise forever? Or suddenly you stop? Because I thought you would have stopped after 2-3 years.
Why? Because you would think that I repeat myself?
No. Because I thought.
Well, no, because that's...
When you reach the 1,000 marker, or maybe
But-
that's his goal, and now you're on 6,000.
I never had a goal in numbers. In a way, they erase themselves one after the other.
Of course.
By essence, they're ephemeral,
Yeah,
except they're kept online.
Exactly. So now it seems to me you would go on forever.
No, because at some point, the company that allows me to upload them might go out of business and they might disappear forever.
Well, you'll find another channel in another
I
company.
no, because they might disappear with the server. There's some servers.
Oh, you mean all these records will be gone?
Yeah,
It would be a tragedy.
they're on some server
Because
somewhere.
you deleted your files?
No,
No. I mean the six. You have all 6,000.
no.
No, you deleted them.
They're all on servers of companies that
Yeah. So
allow to
I mean,
upload.
I
So
mean, they're not in your own hardware offline.
No.
Yeah. So they're gone.
what I'm trying
I'll
to
write to
say
YouTube.
is that when you
Do
listen,
you get those copyright infringement things sometimes?
No.
Oh, you're lucky then. You do know what I'm talking about, right?
yes, and often for pieces that are from Bach, so which is strange because he's not really
Exactly.
listened. But the point
But
is,
for your own pieces, no.
no, is that my greatest student Yao Cheng wrote to the Guinness Book,
Yes.
and the Guinness Book answered to her
Yes.
about my improvisations.
Yes.
That they cannot prove that I improvise them, therefore they cannot prove their improvisations.
What the?
Because they don't know that I don't play them from a score that is hidden. And so the fact is that I never did it for anybody else, but it's a necessity for me. Now, of course, at the beginning of the conversation about the improvisation I do is an ambiguity between if I do it intimately, I don't need a camera. And if I leave it on the camera, is that I want people to hear it.
You do want.
Well, ultimately, if I put it on, I'm aware that some people might. And I always think if it makes some people somewhere
Yes.
fulfilled to hear this or that one, perhaps I achieved part of my teacher's goal, which was to tell me to always give of my talent.
Oh, okay.
And so if I do something and I go, oh, if I write it down, I'll say, no, not F minor and not in this, what I do. And so, yes, you can, in the writing process, filter it and to a point to which you denaturate it. It's no more naturally flowing. And so what I like about the liberating part is that when I improvise, I don't write. And when I write, I don't improvise. But it has changed me in the sense that when I compose written music, I tend to search more for the continuity that inevitably is difficult to do unless you're on an island by yourself. And the other thing is that it also helped me in interpretation of other pieces.
It helps you?
Yes.
Why? How?
It's a very liberating feeling that you can play a piece without to fear to do wrong.
I think it's perfect moment we leave this exact part to the next part about being a performer, shall we?